The June 27th, 2022 regular Wasilla City Council meeting is called to order. The time is 6 p.m. Before we begin, council, please put away cell phones. If you've got personal business to attend to during the meeting, please move for a recess. If you're participating telephonically, please mute your phone unless speaking. Also, when speaking, please state your name for those streaming the meeting. As a reminder to all attendees, the meeting is being streamed live. The camera is located directly in the back of the council chambers right above the clock. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Sullivan Leonard.
Here.
Councilmember Graham.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Vlock.
Here.
Councilmember Rubeo.
Here.
We do have a quorum, Madam Mayor. All council members are present and in council chambers.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Mr. Brown, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. The first item of business is approval of the agenda. Council, before I ask for changes to the agenda, I'd like to recognize Councilmember Rubeo in regard to AM number 22-14. The contract award to Big Dipper Construction in the amount of $609,250 for the city's fiscal year 2023 equipment rental and operator contract.
Well, I do not have a conflict of interest to declare. I do want to make it public aware of my relationship with Big Dipper Construction. The company is owned by my father. He is not a member of my household, and I have no financial interest in the company.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there changes to the agenda?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move item 8.4.4 out of the consent agenda into the new business, which is AM 2216.
Okay. Is there any more changes to the agenda? Hearing none, is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as amended. We are now at special orders of the day. There's one proclamation that I will read. Whereas June 11, 1776, the colony's Second Continental Congress met in Philadelphia and formed a committee whose express purpose was drafting a document that would formally sever the ties with Great Britain. And whereas July 4, 1776, the Declaration of Independence was adopted, announcing the colony's separation from Great Britain. And whereas the nation's founding fathers declared to their fellow colonists and the world our inalienable rights to liberty, life, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas each year on July 4th, we celebrate the birth of our nation and the signing of the Declaration of Independence, recognizing our great country as an enduring symbol of freedom, equality, and opportunity for all. And whereas the freedoms that were won at the birth of our nation are defended every day by the dedicated men and women of the United States Armed Forces, past and present. And whereas Alaska is known as the last frontier, a great land of limitless opportunities, the spirit of our state lives on today as we continue to look to our bright and limitless future. Whereas on July 4th, 2022, we celebrate 246 years of independence. Now therefore I, Glenda D. Ledford, Mayor of the City of Wasilla, do hereby proclaim July 4th, 2022 as Independence Day in Wasilla and encourage all Alaskans to celebrate the birth of our nation and recognize the importance of our independence and freedom. Dated the 27th day of June, 2022. We are now at Commission and Agencies Reports. Deputy Administrator, Planning, City Planner. I'll get it right. City Planner Tina Crawford will present both reports this evening.
Good evening, for the record, Tina Crawford. Just give you a brief overview, and if you have more questions, I'll be glad to answer them. So on June 13th was the first meeting for the Landscape Standard Review Committee. We had the meeting, we're using the Microsoft Teams platform, but it's available for the public to connect into. We put the link on the website. The public can view it, it's streamed that way. There's also recordings and minutes from the meeting that we post to the iCompass webpage where all the meeting information is. They elected their officers and voted to meet the second Monday of every month. They'll be meeting for the next 5 months. They meet from 5 to 6:30 upstairs in the mayor's conference room. Basically, the last meeting was an introduction, overview of some of the issues that some of the members had and wanted to share with the group. They requested that staff provide more information about how the last code was drafted, so we'll be getting them that information to consider at their next meeting. I think the biggest thing that came out of at that committee meeting was, rather than going line by line item through the code, what should they change, what words should they change, the direction was to all the members to go out into the community, take pictures of sites, of landscaping that they liked and that they didn't like. Then when they come to a consensus, in addition to all the other things they will be doing, then we'll try and draft code language that implements those standards for what they actually see on the ground. So they'll be working on that. They seem like a really enthusiastic group, had a lot of good ideas that they were bouncing off of each other even initially. And then one of the committee members is going to be forwarding a list of concerns that they've received from other landscape architects and developers. The June 14th Planning Commission, I guess I could stop there if you wanted to ask any questions about that.
Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Tina. So, what's the size of the commission again? How many members?
We ended up with 6.
With 6 members. You're in the mayor's conference room for your meetings, which is kind of limited space. Is there a reason we couldn't have it in the larger room where more in-person public attendance could be?
We chose that room because they need access to the whiteboard, they need access to the computer projection, they need that working table setting. To date, we haven't had any input or contact from members of the public wanting to attend. If for some reason we outgrow it, we can change the location, but they seem to be comfortable with that location, and it just seemed like it had all of the resources that they need.
Thank you.
So,
Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could you just refresh for the public the intent of the committee and the deadline they're going to try to accomplish this by?
Sure. The intent of the committee is to look at the landscape regulations that are currently on the books today to identify cost savings, efficiencies, clarifications that assist developers when they're doing new development in the city, but still achieving the vision of the residents that they wanted for their community that was adopted as part of the comprehensive plan. So it's that balance of what's a reasonable landscaping code to still improve the appearance of the city. And so they're looking at ways to achieve that. And so we have 2 landscape architects, an architect, an engineer, a business owner and property owner who just went through the process, and then we have a citizen representative. So it's a pretty good group.
And the foundation they're going to use is going to be the comprehensive city overlay.
Yes, the comprehensive plan, they've already been provided that and the intent and purpose of the landscape chapter of the code, and so they're working within those parameters.
And do we have an approximate date when they hope to accomplish this?
Yes, they were authorized for 6 months, so they go through November of this year. Then we'll bring the recommendations to the Planning Commission first, and then it will ultimately come in front of the City Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any more questions? Hearing none. The Planning Commission.
So the Planning Commission met on June 14th. It was, the only item on that agenda was a committee of the whole discussion dealing with parking standards in the downtown overlay. The downtown overlay is like a 6-block radius, basically from Parks to Nelson Bogard to Yenlo to Lucille. So just that particular area there. So what they will be doing and what staff will be working with them, we started an analysis last summer of trying to identify how many city-owned parking spaces we have, what potential do we have to add more, what potential do we have for on-street parking, and what kind of public-private partnerships could we try and enter into with private business owners to create additional parking spaces. In addition to that, we're going to look at whether or not parking spaces should be required on site. If so, how many? If not, what other kind of ways would we ensure that there's appropriate parking? Some communities use payment in lieu of on-site parking, and then that money is put into a capital fund to be held to purchase more land to create more parking. There's a lot of different ways and a lot of moving parts. So that was their first conversation. Their next one will be August, and the August 8th. And what we're going to do is we're going to do mail-outs, emails, and physical mail-outs to the business owners within that area and give them the list of all the meeting dates that we're projecting for like the next 6 months so they can participate. We'll probably have a workshop for them too to come and give input.
Okay, is there any more questions?
Madam Mayor?
Colleen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Tina, for your report. With regard to parking in downtown, are you hearing more of the challenges of lack of space or the quality of the parking that is already available for patrons?
Oh, great. I'm glad you asked me. That's perfect because that's the part that I missed.
Oh.
The main impetus for the study is because the standards today are creating an impediment to new development, new businesses, new restaurants, because the massive amount of parking that's adopted for the rest of the city, where we're typically dealing with shopping centers or big box or something like that, isn't necessarily the standard that we need in downtown. So some of the restaurants that have opened recently, it was a real struggle to get them over that required parking threshold. It took a lot of creativity to make that happen. So downtowns just operate a little bit differently. So we want to make it easy for more businesses to open downtown, but we also want to protect property owners who choose to have private parking, who don't want to have that taken away from them or impinged upon without their approval. So it's kind of a balance there. But it's to open up the door for more development downtown and allow them to maximize the use of their property.
Thank you.
Is there other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Brown?
Madam Mayor, thank you. Doing this parking, are you allocating, are you looking at how to open some spaces up for food trucks?
Absolutely. That's like, we're already doing some initial conversations. I won't go into it, but we're looking to create some areas where that can happen so that we can have more events and activities downtown and utilize some of those parking lots during maybe not so much of the busy time and to get more people downtown. So we're absolutely looking to include that in there.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any further questions? Thank you, Tina.
Well, I did have, Crystal had asked me to go ahead and talk about the Downtown Business Owners Lunch and Learn that we had this past Friday, June 24th. So it was a collaborative effort. It was Crystal's idea, but we collaborated together to pull it off. And then the mayor was there to participate too. So we invited the business owners and the property owners that were within the downtown overlay. We think we'll probably be doing this quarterly or 2 to 3 times a year, but basically at this particular one, we had about 18 people show up. It was pretty good, for it was a beautiful sunny day, and they all showed up at the library to hear what was going on in the city. And what we did was we had DOT show up, give them an update on the Main Street Couplet project. Actually, Councilmember Graham was there also. I forgot that he was there. So they gave an update on the Couplet project, what the timelines were, and that kind of stuff. Crystal gave an update on the SEDS grant and project that's moving for the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. I gave an update on the downtown overlay parking analysis and that code amendment that we're working on. And then the last item that's probably new to you is when the downtown area plan was adopted and the downtown overlay was adopted, there was always a plan to create a downtown committee, board, something to brainstorm ideas to help that they think are necessary infrastructure changes or grants or improvements to downtown that they think would help vitalize downtown and attract more customers downtown. So it'll probably be held off till the couplet project comes in, because then they'll get to see an idea of actually what the downtown overlay produces. It may start during that process, but most likely afterwards. But we'll look to get stakeholders from city business owners that are in the downtown. And then hopefully in future CIPs, you'll have recommendations from them too coming forward.
Is there questions for Tina? Mr. Johnson?
Tina, since you mentioned the couplet project, is there any new surprises in the project from the DOT, like any more delays?
I believe they said they're doing the, Crystal, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was to start in 2023?
Yeah.
Or 2024?
Well, they're doing all the final engineering at the end of this year and then 2024 actual construction.
Yeah, construction starts in 2024. So I think that is yet another year delay. But they're still working through right-of-way acquisitions. There's still some holdouts and some driveways they need to resolve, so. But they're about 85%, I think.
Graham?
Thank you. Both Tina and Crystal, that was very informative lunch and learn, a great format, and a lot of people went there. They presented not only to the downtown improvement district, but they also talked about the couplet project that you had talked about. And as I recall, the majority of the questions and comments were about the couplet, not about the downtown improvement district. And since the couplet involves much more than the downtown, as a matter of fact, the majority of the couplet project is outside of downtown. Are you looking at having a similar town hall or something that everybody can come to and talk about the couplet, as opposed to just inviting the downtown business owners?
Wasn't on my agenda. I'm not sure what Crystal may be looking into or not. Certainly it's something we could look into doing. This was more just trying to, again, get our downtown business owners to be aware of how because it's going to directly impact them because of, when roads are closed and there's construction going on in front of their business. At least they know, they're aware of the timeline and kind of get an update. But if that's the will of the council or direction of the mayor, then we could absolutely set up. We'd have to see if DOT has availability. I mean, obviously they're the ones that do the presentation and.
Got 2 years.
So I could check with them and see if they have that planned again. They seem to be receptive to this one, saying that they hadn't been out in the public doing a presentation in quite a while, so they might be receptive to doing this also.
I think the other folks that are affected.
More of
by
a
the couplet
citywide type of a.
Appreciate knowing what's going on and having some input before the plans, go final.
Or we could maybe have them come to the city council and do a presentation, and then the public would be invited too.
I think it'd be more effective to have a charrette town hall where that's the one item on the agenda, and people can walk around, look at maps, and talk to the engineer, and talk to the project manager, that sort of thing. But that's my personal opinion.
Okay, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the chair to the body, we are working on an update from DOT and the consultant on the Main Street couplet. We can expect to see them here on our next meeting, July 11th.
Okay. Is there further questions for the city planner? Thank you, Tina.
Thank you.
We are now at public participation. There are 3 ordinances scheduled for public hearing this evening. Madam Clerk, please read the title of the first ordinance.
Thank you. First ordinance serial number 2221, amending the fiscal year 2022 budget by accepting and appropriating a block grant from the Matanuska-Susitna Borough in the amount of $1,486,393 for the Wasilla Intermodal Depot Project.
The public hearing on ordinance serial number 2221 is open. Anyone who would like to testify, please come forward and begin by stating your first, last name. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Bert Cottle, city resident. This project started under my administration, so I'm just here to support the project, and this is just another phase of the total project. So once this phase is completed, what that will give you is access to that complete 17 acres down there. Otherwise, it splits it. You own that 11 acres, and the party, whoever buys the other piece, if that was to happen, would own the other 6 acres. Would also give them direct access across your property, the middle of your property. So this makes that one piece whole. And then the leftover money, what our initial plan was, and that changes from council to council, I understand, but our initial plan was after that, with any leftover money after the purchase is made, that money would be used for paving and lighting. So that would get you to the next phase. And I'm sure there would be phases after that, but what this does is lock up one piece of property, and the property owners are here tonight. They probably won't testify, but it locks that piece of property up into one parcel. So we're not piecemealing that parcel, and then we have complete control over, or you have complete control over who comes across that property. And then one of the phases hopefully would be down the road would be to be able to work with Alaska Railroad and get access on that other end that we don't have now, that you don't have. So, which would give you 3 ways in and out of that facility instead of just 2. Because then you would be working between government agency and not private government. So it just gives you total control. So when we bought that piece of property, the grant that we got under the prior governor was for a parcel. And so that's the only reason we didn't buy all 17 acres. And we had the money then, but we didn't buy it then because the grant would only apply to one piece. So this sews all that up, and it's a lot cleaner operation, and you have total control. So anyway, sorry.
Madam Mayor, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Hi, Mayor Cottle, good to see you.
Good to see you.
It's nice that you're here giving your input on this, because I think it's really important. One of the things I've failed to ask, and probably should have prior to today, but when you look at access in and out of that property, what do they have planned then for Parks Highway, Glenwood Extension, or Robert Street, or kind of, what's the thought? Do we see new lights then off of the Parks Highway Extension there? Are there lights then on Roberts that kind of connected to make the traffic flow?
What the railroad's plan is, and I'm sure that they can explain this better than I can, but what their plan is put a side rail in. So they can actually pull passengers' cars in, be able to load, unload passenger cars, because we get about 2,000 people a year coming on and off the train there, and still have freight trains go by. So it would also free up less wait time at Main Street and intersection where the railroad is. So instead of blocking that, this would actually allow them to park cars. And then if we ever did get the commuter train, and hopefully that's not a dead project, we could actually run commuter trains out of there. But the railroads, under Archie's administration, also approved the docking area and the ramps and all that kind of stuff, and that they would put another side rail in and make it a lot smoother.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, just to follow up. So the other part of the intermodal system then, was there also discussion with buses or other forms of transportation moving in and out?
Yes.
And I think that's what my question really pertained to.
Right. And then, so like when we had the earthquake, that would also give us an option of more buses coming in, and then the tourists, we wouldn't have the tour buses down here on Main Street, and it would give more room. And then you could open up maybe a strip mall or something like that. You could actually expand your business opportunities down there, and it would give you, i.e. the city, would give you total control.
Right, it's still access for lights,
Yes.
roads, I think will still be a challenge in that, but.
Better than what you got now. Yeah, and that was part of the design for Robert Street coming down the hill. That would give you 2 accesses in and out. And, once that all gets landscaped and cleaned up, yeah, I mean, it'll be nice. It'll be nice.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Great to see you here tonight, Mayor Cottle. Just for clarification, this is the piece of land that runs from the edge of All Seasons Clothing Company over basically to the relocated train depot. Is that correct?
Where the big rocks are. Big rocks is actually the cutoff point in there, but yeah.
But the city owns up to
Yeah.
Big Rocks on that.
And big rocks are probably worth $10,000 a piece, so yeah, it's a good deal.
Don't think they'd fit in your truck.
Try and buy a big rock.
Thank you.
But it makes it a better project. It makes it you own the project then.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Johnson.
Mayor, Council. Thank you for coming tonight, I appreciate that. So I just have a question, because it's sort of all run together in the purpose statement. It says, for the planning, property acquisition, site preparation, architectural design, engineering, and construction, so that 1.4 million is for that, all of those tasks then? Is that the intent of the grant?
The intent of the grant was, number one, to purchase the property, and then any remaining money would go towards the next phase, being lighting would probably be first, because you don't want to put in the pavement and come in and tear up the lighting, but anyway,
Right.
so it would be another, and it could be another 10 phases. It might take you another 10 years to get all the phases done, but the number one was to buy the property. And then any leftover money would go towards what you said, sir.
Okay, so the basic intent here really is the property acquisition phrase within that sentence then?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay.
That-
Because
that
it was
fine.
really unclear the way that it was written as to what it is that we were coming before us. I thought maybe we were ready to do construction beyond that within this.
No.
Okay.
No,
That's what it says.
I would say that would probably be another phase, and you might have, like I said, 6 more phases.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Cottle. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2221?
Madam Mayor, Councilman Brown move ordinance 2221.
Is there a second?
Second by Councilman Johnson.
It's been moved by Councilmember Brown and seconded by Councilmember Johnson to adopt ordinance serial number 2221. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
The only comment I have on this, I appreciate the grant from the borough. Next time, could we have someone from the borough here that could give input on kind of the borough side and the sense of support for this particular project and joint supported? I'm just saying it'd be nice if we had the assembly member here to just give the input on, what the borough looked at, how they came to their decision and whatnot. Thank you.
Okay. Is there further discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, this project has been a long time coming, and is certainly a big step forward for the long-term vision for the city. It's a piece of property without much practical value, on the commercial side, but has a good value on the city side for us to be able to develop, to be able to park there, to be able to perhaps put in some shops and put in a reception center for folks getting off the train. So this project has been a long time coming. We've been talking about it for at least 10 years that I know of, and I'm glad to see it moving forward, and I'm glad to see that the voters of the Mat-Su Borough approved the bond specifically with this money in mind.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Johnson?
This one is actually directed at you. I'm assuming then we will see a new ordinance for the specific acquisition of the land once we've come to some sort of a contract negotiations for the purchase of it. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay, thank you.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please take a roll call vote on the adoption of ordinance serial number 2221.
Thank you. Councilmember Sullivan Leonard.
Yes.
Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Vlock.
Yes.
And Councilmember Rubio.
Yes.
The motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2221 passes unanimously. Councilmember Sullivan Leonard, Graham, Johnson, Brown, Vlock, and Rubio in support.
Madam Clerk, please read the title of the second ordinance scheduled for public hearing.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance serial number 2223, amending the fiscal year 2022 budget by appropriating $65,285 within the Capital Projects Fund and transferring $65,285 from the general fund for equipment and services that support a mobile workforce and enhancements to Muni Rev software.
Public hearing on ordinance serial number 22-23 is open. Anyone who would like to testify, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Seeing no one, public hearing is closed. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2223?
Madam Mayor, I move ordinance serial number 2223.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Viglock and seconded by Councilmember Graham to adopt ordinance serial number 22-23. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Colleen?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Could we have staff give an overview on, or summary on this particular ordinance, please?
The finance director, Ms. Miller.
Councilmember Sullivan Leonard through the mayor. So this ordinance is really administrating our grant in the most expeditious way. We, the city, receive federal funding under the CARES Act. That grant expired December 31st, 2021. Because of supply chain issues, a provision by U.S. Treasury was added to say that if you had eligible expenditures under the grant as of December 31st, 2021, but yet you had not yet received them, they gave a further 9-month grace period to receive those items, and it would still qualify under the grant. The items in this legislation this evening are items which were committed in December, but yet we still have not received. My concern is that as we approach that September date, we might have further supply chain issues. So what this proposes is that we fund the rest of these outstanding items through our general fund reserve, and then to fully utilize the CARES Act grant, we would amend our December 2021 grant to recoup some public safety that were eligible for reimbursement, but for which we'd already exhausted grant funds. So that, since we had already budgeted for those dollars, that would form a fund balance, which would go towards funding these items requested tonight. Thank you.
Is there further discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Graham?
Yeah, this doesn't sound like a big deal, but this is actually kind of a really big deal, because what this does is this improves the ability of the city to continue operating in the event of a significant natural disaster. You know, I mean, COVID obviously wasn't a natural disaster, but we ended up having people working from home, ended up, minimally staffed in different buildings, and it was a challenge at first, obviously, to get that done, but the city, through some efficient planning and efficient use of funds, made things possible. And what this does is this kind of continues on that, using funds that were made available during the CARES Act, even though that particular emergency is over, but being able to use those funds to make sure that we are able to operate much more efficiently in the future. So this is a wise use of money. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Mr. Johnson?
Madam Mayor, to the director, what do you expect then to be our reimbursement percentage? Do you think we can get the whole $65,000 back from the COVID grant, or will we only receive a partial?
No, we will receive 100%. So perhaps for those of you who may have been here in December, the grant closes, but we had to estimate how much reimbursable public safety wages and benefits were going to be available, so that we would fully expend the grant. So we looked for other projects to fill the gap. As it turns out, we had excess public safety wages that we would have been able to apply, but at that point had already committed it for other purposes. So this would be entirely reimbursed.
Is there further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please take a roll call vote on the adoption of ordinance serial number 22-23.
Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Velock.
Yes.
Councilmember Rubio.
Yes.
Councilmember Sullivan Leonard.
Yes.
The motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2223 passes unanimously with Councilmembers Sullivan Leonard, Graham, Johnson, Brown, Velock, and Rubio in support.
Madam Clerk, please read the title of the third and final ordinance scheduled for public hearing.
Thank you. That's ordinance serial number 2224, amending the fiscal year 2022 budget by appropriating $300,000 from the general fund balance to support the operations of Wasilla Area Seniors Incorporated, My House Youth Center, and Vista Rose Senior Housing.
The public hearing on ordinance serial number 2224 is open. Anyone who would like to testify, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. Nice to see you all. My name is Eileen Falkenstein. I'm a member of Wasilla Area Seniors Incorporated and currently serve as a senior ambassador. I see the day-to-day operations of WASI and the organization's commitment to the seniors in the Matanuska and Susitna Valley. But the needs of the senior community are growing. For an example, for the time period of July to May in fiscal year 2020, 75,853 meals were served. For the same period, fiscal year 2021, 104,461 meals were served. For fiscal year 2022, currently, so far 121,566 meals are served. That does not include our Mid-Valley Senior Center, where we also serve meals. For the same time frame, 2020, 1,670 meals were served. 2021, 1,786 meals were served. In 2022, 2,217 meals were served. This is only one of the many services that WASI provides to seniors. I encourage the Wasilla City Council members to approve Ordinance 2224, thereby giving much-needed financial support to WASI so they can continue to enable seniors to live as independently as possible for as long as possible. Thank you for your support.
Is there anyone else?
Go ahead and go. I won't fight you. You'd win.
Not one on age on that. Thank you for all being here and serving. And thank you, Mr. Brown, for your service to the country. My name is Mary Sears. I've been an active member in different ways for the Wasilla Senior Center. In 2008, I was board president. Through the years, my main goal is raising money for Meals on Wheels. And that's been my passion of feeding the homebound seniors in our community here. And I look at Wasilla, how fast it's grown, and our population hasn't grown, and the seniors have increased. We're all getting older. WASI provides a safe place, and I really think that's very important. When you go there to eat, you're not going to be harassed. No, it's a community place, you know, where seniors can do. We have exercise groups there. We have yoga, tai chi, strong senior classes, and other projects. Please support this. We need your help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Not now.
Good evening, Mayor Ledford, council members. My name is Mary Robinson, also known as Randy Robinson. I am a city resident. Through many years of my city residency, I've served on several commissions, Parks and Recreation Commission for one. Also a former board member of the Valley Recycling Center, so I take community very seriously. I'm here this evening to speak in support of ordinance serial number 22-24. I've had, over the years, interacted with all three of the organizations. I firmly believe in Wasilla Area Seniors Incorporated. I firmly believe in My House Youth Center and the Vista Rose Senior Housing. So I urge you to adopt support for the money for the grants, the pass-through grants for all three organizations. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Marlene Mansell, and my title is Assistant Executive Director at Wasilla Area Seniors. I've been there for 3 years. We're asking for you to support the $100,000 grant. But we actually want you to support seniors. There's so much more, the impact that you can have by giving us $100,000. Eileen did a great job covering our numbers, and I spent all my afternoon looking at all my numbers and seeing how I was going to share this with you. But, you can bring hope and health to seniors who need it. Mary spoke about being safe. We have seniors that come at 9 o'clock in the morning that are being dropped off by their relatives. They hang around the senior center all day. And then at lunchtime, they get to sit down with their fellow table members and feel safe and familiar faces that make them want to come back the next day. I look at Awasi and I think about Cheers. You guys remember Cheers? It's a place where everybody knows your name. And that's a place where seniors come whenever they need us. We help them be independent. We provide meals for them. I was thinking, we're asking for $100,000, but you're going to get more than that. Seniors come to lunch prepared to take lunch home. They all bring their little Tupperware dishes, and they split their meal in half, and half goes home with them, because some of them cannot afford to have 2 meals, right? Sometimes they even save it for the weekend. So your money will be well spent, and the impact that you will make to seniors' life cannot be measured. And I can't give you all the numbers that'll make everybody happy, but honestly, your impact is going to be greater if you approve this grant. Thank you. Any questions?
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and council people. Thank you for having me. My name is Carol Rice. I am a senior who resides on the Wasilla Senior Center campus. And I have to say, if none of you have been to Wasilla Senior Center, I invite you to come and have a tour. And you'll be able to see firsthand, if you haven't seen it already, all the different things that we've been doing over the years, and why this money is so important. Because it's just not a meal or a trip or an exercise, but it's a lifestyle for these seniors. Being one of them, I can say that it's improved my life certainly greatly over the last 8 years that I've lived there. And we really need all the help we can get, and we appreciate all the help you've given. And I hope you continue to do so. Thank you so much for hearing me. Any questions?
Thank you, Carol.
Hi, I'm Michelle Overstreet from My House. Madam Mayor, thank you for having us. Aren't we blessed by all these amazing seniors in our community? They're awesome. I wanted to share a couple things that I didn't share last time, but I had that delayed intelligence, so I forgot until I got away. And the $100,000 that the city has the opportunity to offer us can be leveraged into much, much more than that. And I'll give you an example. Alaska Housing gave us money for one housing unit 8 years ago. And by collecting rents and leveraging that it's $94,000 a year. that one grant for case management and housing, we now have 6 housing units, and we still get that exact same amount of money. We sustain all the rest of that housing by collecting rent and leveraging that Alaska housing money, and we would do the same with the money from the city. So it lets us exponentially grow that. I also wanted to share that the training that we offer in our building with Gathering Grounds Cafe and Steam Driven Boutique is tailored for city tax income for the industries that are the most profitable for city taxes inside the city. So we're literally training homeless kids to fill the gaps in retail sales and food service jobs that are available. And we can't hardly get them to complete a training program because they get hired before they're done. Our hiring success rate since March of 2020 is 100%. That means that every kid that we've trained is working. And we follow them up for 3 years, so it's not just one job. Our businesses cost about $150,000 a year to sustain. They don't make money. There's no program that pays us to train the clients. So that's why you always see my house doing fundraisers and golf tournaments and Rotary Uncorked and all the different fundraisers. We backfill that training money to the tune of about $150,000. And this year, the cost for that is up about 30% because of the cost of food, shipping, and all gas and all the increases that have happened as a result of inflation. I'm cringing because those numbers are going up faster than they have in the past. I also wanted to share that the $23 million that we got for the federal appropriation that comes through Health and Social Services is, according to Senator Murkowski's office, the largest social services appropriation ever to be received in the Mat-Su Valley, and that will be used to build that specific building right in Wasilla. I feel like it's something that we're going to be really proud of, and that will allow us to do a lot more than we're doing now. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to testify on serial number 2224?
Wasilla resident. So just to make it clear, I sit on the board of directors for my house. Also am a lifetime member of WASI. I just want to stress for all 3 of the organizations that you're going to approve tonight, and I hope you do, is the buy-in power that you support, by supporting them. Every one of you that sit here tonight in front of me have filled out a grant application, I'm sure. And part of the grant application is what other support do you get? And getting support from your local community, trust me, is worth 10 times the amount of money you give tonight. So them $100,000 increments are actually $1 million increments. Because whether it's Michelle, whether it's WASI, whether it's the other Vista Rose, fill out on an application, when your hometown community supports you, that's buying power. Mat-Su Borough has supported my house on 2 $100,000 increments on support. So you're not the only government agency that has stepped up, and the federal side, but the buying power that shows, like I said, and the support from your local community is worth 10 times this amount. So I just want to tell you thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to testify? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing. And is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2224?
Rubeo.
And is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Rubeo and seconded by Councilmember Wheelock to adopt ordinance serial number 22-24. Is there discussion? Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for everybody that testified. There is absolutely no doubt that my house and WASI provide essential services to those members of their community and to our community as a whole. Without WASI and without my house, this community would be in a different place than it is now. But I am torn on this ordinance because I do not see that it is the function of government to support organizational operations. When WASI came to us earlier in the year, actually I think it was late last year, in need of transportation, a specific grant that was issued and funded by the city for a specific essentially a piece of infrastructure which allowed WASI to operate. It didn't provide for operating funds, for the vehicle that was put forward. It didn't provide for staff funds. It didn't provide for paying the driver, or didn't specify that you go out and find volunteer drivers to do that. But that is the function of government, is to provide infrastructure to make things possible. In my opinion, it's the function of organizations to provide the business plan and the operating expertise to be able to raise the operational funds to make things happen. And that's where community comes in. Just like Mr. Cottle was saying, a dollar from the community equals, $10 down the road. But there's a huge difference between money that you raise for me, the money I spend at the auction for Miles for Meals. There's a huge difference between that money and money that comes from the government. Because believe it or not, the government doesn't have any money. We are broke. Every dollar that we spend is somebody else's dollar. And we spend those dollars hopefully to support infrastructure which supports economic development, which brings more business into the city by being able to provide power, by being able to provide water and sewer and telecommunications, by being able to provide roads, be able to provide an airport. That brings jobs into town, and then those jobs support the housing that we need, support the nonprofits that we need, support the great organizations like WASI and My House. But I don't think it's the function of the government, and certainly the government shouldn't start down the slippery slope of providing operational funds through kind of an unrestricted grant program to do that. I'll do everything I can to support WASI, and I'll do everything I can to support My House, but I can't support this ordinance because I don't think the function of government is to provide operational funds for nonprofits and social service agencies. Thank you.
Colleen?
You go first, Colleen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What's before us today, I find myself kind of stuck in the middle, and the reason why I say that is the administration has brought forward a request for grant funds, and of course we do have that in code that the city can provide a grant, but in further research, actually the Wasilla City Council has a policy that they do not give grants. And this came about from several years worth of informational memorandums and work from previous councils, both from 2004 up to the most recent council meeting, which was 2019. And I recall that our mayor was on council at that time, and I believe Councilmember Graham was also on council. And what was brought forward for that particular meeting was an update on the community grant policy. And for that meeting, it passed that the city council would not be involved with disbursements of community grants. So that's difficult for me. We have a request for grants, but our policy is such that we don't approve grants. So with that, again, it's a bit of a challenge. I did ask our finance director to look at other cities to see who does provide grants and what kind of community grants, have they done for their communities. And, Fairbanks has grants that they give out, Soldotna, Kenai, Palmer has community grants that they look at. and they have a structured program for doing that. What I see in this is a lack of that particular structure. And from me, I have worked on grants prior, and usually you have a copy of financials, you have 990, so you can see the business structure, and all those things that you would normally look for. Here, it's just, 4 pages of request for funds. And unfortunately, we are really missing pertinent information from those that are requesting funds. And so, again, I am struggling with that. I have a couple ideas, but I'm going to wait and see what the rest of my colleagues say. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson.
Mayor. Thank you, everybody, for testifying. And I certainly support and realize the benefit of WASI and One House. I think that the community is much richer because of those two organizations, and I see their benefit to the community. On the other hand, like to previous speakers, I see the issue with the philosophical issue of a grant. But even apart from that, when I actually sat down and was looking at it, I thought to myself, what would be my criteria for approving such a grant? I came up with 3 particular criteria. First criteria would be, is there a broad public benefit to the grant? Because I'm going to be spending public money, you should expect to have a broad public benefit. 2, what is the real use of the money? Is there a specific purpose? Is there a plan? Is there a business plan put forth with the money? Or are we just funding a general operation? And I think other people have mentioned that generally operation plans should be covered by fundraising. Specific uses for the money, I think, could be brought forward if there is a specific use. The last thing we hotly debated over the COVID was the basis and the ownership and the establishment for the organization. Now, as I look through at the 3 grants before us, 2 of them I could definitely say answers Part B and C, Part A, B. The third one, on the other hand, I see lacking pretty much A, B, and C. There's one of the organizations that I probably could not, at this particular point with the information in front of me, vote for this particular thing. So let me go through my analysis. We'll start with the easiest one first, and that's WASI. Obviously, with Meals on Wheels and the program and the broad support for seniors, I see that there is a broad public benefit there. Use of the money, if I had a plan in front of me for a specific use, I could probably come forward with a grant on that. And certainly, when I looked at local ownership, pardon me, Mayor, I'm going to look at my phone so that I do not misquote the records here for the for the borough. You are in fact owned by a local establishment, which is a 501c corporation. Perfect. We're in good shape. You met all of my criteria, with the exception of possibly B. My house, pretty much the same thing. We do offer services, although not necessarily specific for Wasilla, but certainly for the borough in terms of the clientele that you would have, and it would certainly benefit the businesses within the city. So I can understand that. And of course, ownership, you're just right along the same thing as WASI. WASI, of course, was basically financed through the Alaska State organization, HSG, which is, by the way, a public corporation. And that comes now to the last one. That's where I really have a difficulty here with this one. We do not see any real broad usage or basic public benefit for the money. It will benefit the particular people living in the community. The use of the money, P, was sort of vague, and the ownership of it, is really sort of interesting. I'll read you the ownership of the. It is really owned by Wasilla Pacific Associates LLC, which is a front corporation, which is registered by a registrar in Alaska. The owner of the company is Cogni C LLC, principally owned in Idaho. I'm looking at this and going, now under the COVID rules, we would have had a real hard time funding any grant for that particular company just due to the fact that there was multiple corporations that were owned by the principal, and it's unclear, and according to the borough website, I'll go back to my cell phone for just a minute here, that one is listed as a private organization. So I'd have a real hard time with the third one altogether. So that is where I stand in my support of this ordinance. Thank you.
Is there further discussion?
Madam Mayor, Councilman Brown,
Yes, sir.
could I ask the city clerk or the city attorney for an opinion on whether they consider we are violating a previous ordinance on this?
Yep, want me to go?
Yes, it would be legally appropriate to adopt. The one concern I do have, one of the companies is a for-profit corporation. Wasilla has a code provision, 52420. That's your code provision that authorizes you to do a pass-through grant in this way. And it's this appropriation is appropriate after the appropriation is made. There is a list of criteria and conditions that have to be met in an agreement with each of these organizations, which I presume the city will meet. When I look at the criteria on that list, that the letters of interest meet those criteria, and while they require, for example, that it be a public purpose, it does say to the extent that purpose fits within the reason for the grant. So when you have, obviously, for example, with homeless youth, not everybody is youth and not everybody is homeless. So it would, so long as you're tailored to that portion of your community. Okay. So legally, I do not have a problem with the ordinance.
Further discussion? Ms. Biglock.
Madam Mayor? Yeah, I'm also torn. I think mostly, I think Wasi in my house, I would definitely give them those grants. But then we did receive this grant policy that says we do not have a grant policy anymore, that it was repealed. So I just wanted to make sure. Let's see, yeah, it was repealed in its entirety. Community grants are not available from the city. So here in Holly Top, that was encouraging. I'm like, if we approve this, are we going against policy? Are we, I want to do the right thing. I think they're very deserving, of course. But as a council, should we be going by this policy or?
I can offer some comments to that question, but I really was a policy question. I will say that your ordinance was last updated in 2020. So in 2020, the criteria for awarding a grant was revised somewhat, and that is an expression by council via ordinance. So to the extent you have a policy, and I believe the policy was adopted in 2015. So we did revisit this code provision after that fact, and to have a law that would trump your policy. I will say that this code provision requires that that the agreement entered into is with a nonprofit group. So to the extent this is appropriated and then the administration finds that one of the recipients does not meet the standards, the minimum criteria, then that will not be, despite the appropriation, we'll see that it will not, that money will not be appropriated or not be expended for that purpose. So they'll have to go and march through those criteria.
Madam Mayor?
Colleen?
Legal question, please. My understanding is that the city has not issued grants. I guess I would refer to them as community grants, except for, gosh, I don't know, Wasilla High School, I think, has received some funding through the mayor's budget. But overall, without really having the structure to allow other nonprofits in the community to come forward, if they knew that the city has money available, does that kind of put the city at risk a bit? Because we've got 3 chosen nonprofits, worthy or not, you know, it's interpretation, it's need of the community, but there are other nonprofits that I'm well aware of that I'm sure would truly benefit from funds from the city too if they knew it was available.
That's an excellent question, and I do think that communities benefit from setting up a procedure and criteria for grant programs. If you're going to run a grant program, you want to make sure that everybody's being assessed and analyzed as a recipient on the same criteria. One of the things that Wasilla did very aptly is adopt this provision on grants, so at least you have the criteria. That's the basic criteria, and you have a letter of intent process. Given the COVID discussions that happened with council and the reasons why, I believe this was sort of brought in tandem right around that same time when you were all discussing as a body funding and how to do that. That discussion is there, that those procedures are there combined with the code, so it would be lawful. But to your point, there is also, it's great if you have a more formalized grant program if you're going to continue to engage in these types of funding going forward. So you have a procedure annually or biannually or whatever council decides to establish.
Madam Mayor, just to follow up on that.
Okay.
Sorry, excuse me. I guess my thought is that, you know, we're seeing the challenges of inflation all through our city. It's hitting our residents, the nonprofits, our seniors, our youth. Everybody is getting hit hard from that. But with rising prices, you also get a rise in sales tax revenue. And I believe that the city probably will see more money in the coffers than anticipated. I don't have numbers from Joan, so I don't quantify that, but maybe council could look at a grants policy for nonprofits with a sunset clause. We could look at something that, especially during these hard, trying times, we could do it for a year. After FY22 is done, we could see what the general fund looks like. We could see what money is available and form a committee to establish grants, I guess, grant review and grant disbursement. I've done that in the past. I'm well versed with grants and disbursement, as I know Deputy Mayor is as well. So I'm going to nominate Nikki probably. She doesn't know it yet. But anyway, council, I throw that out to you. I think it's something we could look at it. I don't think we have a timeline with how this money is dispersed. The end of the fiscal year is coming. That money is not going away. It's still in general fund. But it would give us time to establish a grant policy if council would like to do that. If not, the other option is to vote it up or down tonight and move forward. But anyway, that was my suggestion. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Councilperson Sullivan Leonard, as usual, has hit the nail right on the head. If we're going to be in the grant business, we need to have a way, for everyone to apply. And that needs to be a public policy. People need to know about it. and the council and the administration need to make funds available through the budget for that. You know, in the case of what we're looking at today, this is unbudgeted money. It's just something that's been put on the table for us to consider with no policy on how to determine which organizations are worthy of a grant or not. And, you know, Councilperson Sullivan Leonard is exactly right. If we're going to be in the grant business, then we need to appropriate money for that, and then we need to have a way to disperse that money rather than just groups coming to the city council or the administration putting something forward. And I know Holly hates it when I look at her, but you mentioned a provision in the council, Ms. Wells, or a permission in the code, I should say, about grants, and you specifically mentioned pass-through grants. Now, it's been my understanding that pass-through grants are, you know, the borough comes forward and says, you know, we're going to give $100,000 to WASI through the city of Wasilla, and then the city council says, okay, yeah, we approve that pass-through grant. This is not a pass-through grant. This is a true, each of these three are true grants. Does that provision in the code only talk about pass-through grants, or does it talk about grants in general? I was confused by your initial discussion.
In this case, the pass-through would be a pass-through appropriation. The way that your ordinance is drafted, it's passing through the funds to nonprofit organization. So, but your code provision is actually pretty comprehensive. It involves both the pass-throughs to the community, and that would include both when you do it through an appropriation yourself, as in this case, or if you're passing through other funds, except there is an exception in that code provision for revenue sharing pass-through grants from the state of Alaska. And I didn't spend much time on that, admittedly, but that is something to note. And it would also apply even to straight grants for projects, capital projects, whatever they might be. So you've authorized yourself through the adoption, and when I say you, I mean the council as a body has authorized this grant authority and has pretty specific criteria. There's about 7 or 8, I think, in there on what you want to see in an agreement, including reporting requirements once the grant is received from the grant recipient, as well as criteria that they need to meet and that council would need to meet once the money has been appropriated.
All right, thank you for that explanation. I don't think the whole term pass-through is kind of confusing to me, but obviously a lot of things are confusing to me. But in lieu of the conversation that's been had around the table tonight, Madam Mayor, I move to table this ordinance serial number 2224 until just move to table.
Madam
You
Clerk.
mean to postpone indefinitely?
No, I mean to table it.
I would say that motion is out of order. What do you want to do, and I'll help you?
Basically, I just want to take this off the table, essentially, so that we have time to look at an ordinance setting up the ability to do grants and have some sort of system in place for giving grants.
Do you want to postpone it?
Isn't the motion to table pretty much to take it off the table?
Well, at that point, then
You can only table at the same meeting. So if you wanted to be technical about it, if, say the governor came in, we wanted to give him time to speak, we would table this and we'd renew it before the end of the meeting, allowing him the opportunity to speak. Say we wanted to go into executive session because we were in the middle of this item and we needed some legal advice, we would table it until the executive session was over.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
Thank you, sir.
I'll borrow your, was it Robert's Rules for Dummies? I'll borrow that. So, Madam Mayor, I move to postpone this ordinance indefinitely.
Okay.
The effect of that motion is to kill this And so this will go away.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, point of order. I mean, the other thought is you can vote it down, and then that just leaves it clean. And then we come back with the grant policy and then new ordinance later, is mine.
Would that be your preference?
I guess so.
We'll give deference to Councilperson Sullivan Leonard and remove my request to postpone indefinitely.
Madam Mayor, Councilman Sullivan, I think that'd be a very good idea that we actually come out with a full understanding of how grants should be applied for, that would always leave the door open for these fine organizations to reapply at a future date.
Madam Mayor, I move for, call for the question.
Okay, the question has been called. So, Madam Clerk, please take a roll call vote on the adoption of ordinance serial number 22-24.
This is on the adoption of 2224. Councilmember Johnson.
No, but I would like to see them come back to us at a future time.
Councilmember Brown.
No.
Councilmember Velock. Councilmember Rubio. Councilmember Sullivan Leonard.
No.
Councilmember Graham.
No.
Madam Mayor, the motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2224 fails with all council members opposed.
Madam Mayor? Can I ask for action then from council to develop a grants policy committee? I don't know who chooses whom on this, but I would like the deputy mayor and myself to work on this, as well as the clerk, to develop the guidelines that we would need for grants to be considered. And we can probably work out the details of that in the next, I don't know, couple days or so, if that's okay with the deputy mayor. And the clerk.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Brown?
Councilman Brown, I move that the city appoints Councilman Velock and Councilman Sullivan Leonard to head up a committee working with the city attorney and the city clerk to bring back by August a suggestion for how we will adopt a grant procedure policy.
Okay, the motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been made by Councilmember Brown, seconded by Councilmember Rubio. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to amend the motion to give the committee 90 days to report back, as opposed to sometime in August, which would.
Okay, the motion has been amended by Councilmember Graham. Is there a second?
Second, Johnson.
Been seconded by Councilmember Johnson. Is there discussion? And we are just voting on the amendment to the motion, right?
Or if there's no objection,
Okay.
we'll go with the 90 days. And then you can call the question as amended, if there's any objection.
Okay,
I accept the friendly motion, so there's no objection.
okay. Is there objection to the motion
As amended.
as amended?
Hearing none. So to recap, council members Velock, Sullivan, Leonard, myself, and the city attorney will work together to develop some sort of a grant policy on the distribution of community grants, and we have 90 days from tonight, tomorrow.
Madam Mayor,
That's pretty quick.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Now, Holly, this probably will seem like a weird question, but it set precedents. Like Councilmember Sullivan Leonard mentioned, I worked a lot on a foundation with donation requests, and I know how much work goes into it and how much it's a full-time job. Would it take, let's say we did approve 2 grants right now, but we did not have a policy. Does that set a precedence for someone comes to us later, or can we still say, no, we're not a grant? We're not a grant city council, sorry. Do you know what I'm talking about? Or else we're going to be a full-fledged grant. You know, it's a lot of work. Anyway, I was just curious. Can you just grant a couple and you're good to go, or do you really need the policy? Others come to you. Can you get in trouble because you're saying no? Hey, you gave it to WASI.
In this particular case, because you had letters of intent filed actually requesting the funds, and because you have a code provision that has the criteria that the agreement is to follow, don't get me wrong, I think if you start doing this on a regular basis, but given that we were under a declared emergency, disaster emergency, and all of these letters of intent came during that process, and then, was there one that did not?
Through the chair, so correct me if I'm wrong. The letters that are in your packet did not come through the process. We had, in January, second meeting in January, there was, and the identical ordinance came forward. I don't believe there were letters in that packet when that ordinance failed.
So I think those January requests stemmed from the decision in November in some way, or I thought that they did, that there was.
I remember that too.
There was, the funding was going forward, there were requests for additional funding, some was given CARES Act funds, but CARES Act funds had criteria and restrictions upon what could be given. But if that, that's something that we would want to memorialize in an agreement with them, to the extent that's the history of why these services that the organization are giving to the community, what they're providing, team, job training, and WASI services were really tied to those discussions. And then you just want to make sure that the agreement is very clear, and then that would be, there's always risk that people would get challenged, because equal protection covers organizations. So that's always a risk, and a policy is clear. You have the criteria of everyone having the same window. But because these are letters of intent, it would be, and you have a code provision with clear criteria. So yes, having a grant policy, and I would also say a lot of communities really narrow the parameters of the grant program, so that there's lots of discretion that remains with the council. It's very limited, and even that you look at it on a very limited basis. But that is all. So you're not wrong that it would be helpful to have very clear parameters, especially if the administration of it is going to be costly.
Okay. And I do remember when we voted for this in January, and I voted for it because there was a tie to the CARES Act, and I remember being surprised that it didn't pass, and now it's hard to remember because it's been a while, and now it just seems different now, but back then it was like, oh yeah, it's still tied to that CARES Act. Anyway, that's all.
Is there further discussion?
No motion is pending.
I will say this, when this all started, it was during the CARES Act, and we ran out of time, is exactly what happened. And then we had the windstorm in January, which I'm sure you all remember. And we couldn't figure out how we were going to get in touch with all of these seniors that we wanted to make sure they were okay. So we turned to WASI, and they used their miles for meals list and whatever, and that's how we found out if these people were okay or were they not or whatever. And in these miles for meals, these people may only see that driver. That may be the only person they see all day. And the same thing applies to Vista Roads. They may not be a 501(c)(3), I don't know. Their rent and stuff is all the same criteria that Wasilla has. So and my house started, Michelle, I forgot, 10 years ago or longer.
2009.
Yeah. And kids that she has saved has absolutely brought them and made them ready to go to work and give them a purpose in life and whatever. I'll be honest with you, if I had the $300,000, I would not hesitate to give it to the organizations, but unfortunately, I don't have that. So I will continue to fight for them. And with that, we are on to persons to be heard. Michelle, you want to talk?
Well, I would suggest that if you're going to go down the path of getting a grant policy together, that you connect with the Matsu Borough, because over the last 10 years, they've given us $200,000 to help support our services. The majority of the youth that we do serve are from the Wasilla area. We do reach out to Palmer, Sutton, Glacier View, Trapper Creek. We picked up a kid in the Trapper Creek post office. So we serve the entire Matsu Valley, but it is centralized in Wasilla. I think there are a lot of discussions that you can have about who's worthy, and if you want to put together a grant policy, please have people on there that have done grant writing and grant evaluation, because it is a really challenging dynamic kind of a venue. And it's important that if you really truly want to be inclusive, you make it not complicated enough that the smaller nonprofits that I presume some of you are talking about have the ability to apply without a paid grant writer or someone with tremendous experience. So, make sure that you make it really equitable if that's the intent. I feel grateful to the city of Wasilla. I think that we, as well as WASI, and I think the question about the Vista Rose has to do with Valley Residential Services actually providing the nonprofit umbrella for those services. They're tremendously valuable in our community. We have strong, healthy seniors because we have strong services for them. Carol is in my Rotary Club, and I'm so proud that we have people as young as 19 and all the way up into their 90s as part of that club. That's a precious thing for Wasilla. We have a lot to be proud of here. We have a lot of responsibility to the people that live in this little small area. And in order to stay proud and consider ourselves fortunate to be here, we've got to really work together and support one another. And we're all in this together, whether we like it or not. Everybody here is impacted by one homeless youth, whether they steal something from you or come to work for you. And if you're not supporting services for them, our services cost $11.06 a day. If they're over at DJJ, it's $479 a day. Which one do you want to pay? Job Corps costs $90 a day. Foster care, where do you want to pay it? So that's really the question. Where do you want to pay it? You want to pay it in corrections, or you want to pay it up front? Thank you.
Marlene?
Thank you for your time. I'm here to let you know how we did for the Miles for Meals, which we just held a fundraiser on Saturday. We raised enough money to pay for 4,000 meals. We raised $40,000. I don't have all the numbers down, but that's as close as I can come to share with you guys. And I'll tell you what, we can't do it without your support. We can't do it with the community that we have. All the businesses have come together to help us out. And again, thank you for your time, and hopefully, like Michelle said, spend some time reviewing your committee. And we're here to help if you need us. And we also have lots of volunteers that can give input in whatever you need. Again, thank you, and have a great evening.
Mary Robinson.
You know my secret now. So with my experience as a former board member with VCRS, Valley Community Recycling Services, every year we'd have to appear before the Matsu Borough and fight for money for the recycling center. I would like to believe that the borough gave the recycling center and continues to give the recycling center money because they're altruistic. But no, it suits their purposes. This way they're not going to have to open another cell in the landfill, and they are also looking at the greater good of all the community for recycling. So I firmly believe that. I have a little bit of experience with the Parks and Recs Commission, Friends of the Wasilla Library. I'm a board member for that, board member for the Recycling Center. But how I read the ordinance, I don't see grant anywhere there. I'm not necessarily going to get into it now, but I just read it as that the city was, wow, we have funds. We're going to help our most vulnerable. And I didn't think twice about it. And I saw Mary Sears today at the yoga class at WASI, and she's like, oh, and I said, yeah, I'll be there. Of course I will. I believe in that. I'm now 65, so I avail myself. I signed up for a lifetime membership at WASI. I haven't gotten to lunch there yet, but I hear it's very good. So I think perhaps maybe it's getting a little too involved with grants. It's just that the city wanted to do the right thing. And I'm going to leave you with two quotes. Better to light a candle than curse the darkness. And you can tell a lot about a community, a city, or an individual, how they treat their most vulnerable. And most vulnerable are our aged and our youth. So I hope that you reconsider and afford these organizations the funding. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak at this time? Mr. Stearns.
I'm Tom Stearns. I'm Senior Ambassador for the Wasilla Area Seniors. I wasn't planning on speaking today. The heavy hitters were here today, so I just thought I would sit back here. However, I think it's important that we thank you for the job that you've done. You see, I'm here every month, and I talk to you folks, and I tell you what we're doing, and oh, wow, you show up, and you see what we're doing at WASI. That's my organization, and we appreciate that. We appreciate you coming up with this ordinance to try to give us some money. It's inconceivable to me to think that you guys have, even though you didn't give us the money, that you don't care. Because when I listen to you, not just tonight, but over the long period of time, I know you do. And I appreciate that. And I care about WASI, of course, but I appreciate that you folks are willing to listen and are willing to help when you can. And by your support, just being there, that is telling us at WASI that you care, okay? That our Miles for Meals was a great success. The auction was a great success. We raised lots of money. We did lots of great things. And what happens is that those seniors that you are supporting, guess what? They're out in your community. They're buying your products, the products for the people here in Wasilla. They're paying your taxes to the city, and it's a win-win situation. And so we really, really do appreciate all the hard work that you do and all the things that you do for this community. And I'm sure the other nonprofits would agree with that. And I really am appreciative that you listen and that you want to serve and want to help these nonprofit organizations out. Thank you very much.
Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak at this time? Hearing none, we are now on to the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, please read the title of the items for approval under the consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have the regular meeting minutes of June 13th, 2022. We have one introduction with the public hearing date July 11th, 2022. That's ordinance serial number 2225, amending the fiscal year 2023 budget by transferring funds in the amount of $4,959 from the water fund to the sewer fund for a temporary utility laborer. One resolution up for approval this evening, resolution serial number 2209. That's terminating the emergency proclamation, declaration of public health disaster COVID-19 issued by Mayor Burt L. Cottle on March 27th, 2022, and continued by resolution serial number 2213. We have 5 action memorandums under the consent agenda for approval this evening. The first is AM number 2213. Confirmation of mayoral appointment of Todd Lee Stafford to the Planning Commission seat E with a term expiration of December 31st, 2024. Second is AM number 2214, contract award to Big Dipper Construction in the amount of $609,250 for the city's fiscal year 2023 equipment rental with operator contract. AM number 2215, contract award to Combs Insurance Agency in the amount of $47,000 for brokerage insurance brokerage services. AM number 2217, contract award to the Alaska Railroad Corporation in the amount of $62,250 for the city road crossings of the railroad pursuant to the 2002 crossing permit number 7588. And lastly, AM number 2218, contract award to TechPro LLC in the amount of $430,954 for the purchase and installation of electrical components for the Richmond Hills Booster Station project.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
Councilman Brown moved to approve the consent
Is
agenda.
there a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Councilmember Brown and seconded by Councilmember Rubeo to approve the consent agenda as read. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. We are now at unfinished business. There is no item scheduled, so we'll move on to new business. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The only item under new business this evening is the AM that was moved, AM number 2216, contract award to Alaska Communications Internet LLC, ACS, in the amount of $120,150 for information technology support services, specifically to fund one on-site technician at MATCOM.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve AM number 2216?
Madam Mayor, I move action memorandum 2216.
Is there a second?
Second by Councilman Johnson.
The motion has been made by Councilmember Graham and seconded by Councilmember Johnson. Is there discussion? Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The only reason I moved this out was in the spirit of our discussion the last couple of weeks about disclosure of potential conflicts of interest. I don't see a potential conflict of interest here, but I do think it's important to note that a person in the mayor's family doesn't live in her household, was on the board of ACS, but I believe that has passed and is no longer.
4 years ago.
Right, but I believe that has passed and there is no potential conflict of interest there, but so.
Mr. Graham, he was never on the board. He worked for ACS, and that was, like I say, it was 4+ years ago, and I don't know how many the pluses is. So there's no conflict with me, and I wouldn't vote anyway, so.
However, under the ordinance that we passed, we have to disclose potential conflicts. So I don't think there's a conflict here. I just wanted to make sure that we're clear on that.
No conflict for me. Okay, is there a further discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk?
Would you like to general consent? Would you
Yeah,
like to-
that'd be great.
Is there any objection to the adoption of AM number 2216? Hearing none, it passes.
Okay. We are on to audience comments. Huh? Maybe. We're on to communications. Madam Clerk, please read the title of the items under communications.
Madam Mayor, IM number 2207, monthly financial reports for the period ending May 31st, 2022, to include the month-to-date expenditure report and disbursements greater than $10,000, 2 sets of commission or committee planning meeting minutes, Planning Commission, June 14th, 2022, and Landscape Standards Review Committee, June 13th, 2022.
Okay.
Mayor, I have some questions based on IM 2207.
Okay.
These are obviously for Finance Director. When I look at page 2 of 6, it talks about Matsu SRO. There's a remaining budget beginning the 1st of June of about $96,000. Isn't the SRO, that's all internally funded, correct? After the end of the school year, is that correct? The grant funds would have been expended, and this is internal funds? So it's really more patrol as opposed to SRO?
Finance Director Joe Miller, Councilmember Graham, the mayor. So SRO is, would be 100% expended, and then we would seek reimbursement of 75%. So that's going to be on the revenue side, the Matsu Girls District.
Okay, but when we see here that we're going to potentially spend another $96,191 for SRO, under public safety, 1, 2, 3, 4, bullets down, that's really going to be spent on patrol because we're not really doing anything with the schools. Is that right? I mean, we've expended the time for the SROs, and then we will seek the reimbursement for that. But my question: Are we spending $100,000 to protect the schools in the month of June?
So it's not, it's, they are charged 100% to SRO. The fact that we seek the 75% reimbursement from the Matsu Girls School District is the revenue side. So 100% of the costs are charged here. Now, the amount can be higher. SRO positions tend to see some of the vacancies. So, we're not going to spend $96,000 more between now and the end of the year.
So it's purely an accounting issue. It's not a
or an estimate.
Right.
Yes.
Then the second question I have for you is on page 5 of 6, under the airport fund, Public Works, the second bullet down, airport construction. I see a remaining budget of $255,000 roughly. Is that money committed to a project, or it just not expended at this point, or what?
Right. So we had some like the runway crack ceiling repair work. So likely what we haven't seen is the invoices coming in for that work yet. So it's be looking at more project.
It's not unspent money. It's just money that hasn't passed through yet. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
We are now to the audience comments. Is there anyone present who would like to address the City Council at this time? If so, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last names. You are limited to 3 minutes per person. Seeing none, we'll close audience comments, and Madam Clerk, you're up first.
We did make contact all council members. All members except for Rubio and Johnson will be traveling to Sitka for the AML conference, summer conference in August. So I wanted to update the council on that. And then other than that, we will just see you here next regular meeting, July 11th.
Thank you. Madam Attorney.
No comment on
Councilmember Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know everybody's looking forward to voting season, so the next round of voting kicks off on July the 12th for the borough election. I know there's like 400 elections between now and November, but I mean, this is important when there's just 4 propositions on the ballot. But it is important that you take a look at these propositions. Hopefully everybody got one of these books, explaining what's going on in the mail, but please don't forget to vote. Early voting is available, so please take advantage of the opportunity to do so and have your voice be heard. And speaking of voices to be heard, boy, it was great to see everybody tonight and have everybody talk with such passion. We've had this discussion before us for 6 or 7 months now about these different organizations, and it really breaks my heart that we don't have something in place where we can do something other than just automatically hand out money. So I think what Councilperson Sullivan Leonard is and Councilperson Velock are going to put together is going to be a great thing for the community. And then we can kind of move forward from there. There is no doubt that my house and Wazi contribute immeasurably to this community, not just financially, but in other ways through the services that they provide, and make sure that our, seniors, are as independent as possible for as long as possible. And my house, of course, brings people back into the community, which have, I hate to say dropped out of the community, but I mean, I've kind of dropped out of the mainstream. Bring them back into the mainstream, they become productive members of society. But, as much as it breaks my heart to not give them the money, I just don't think it's the government's function to just hand out money willy-nilly. There needs to be a process to do that. The borough has a process to do that. The state has a process to do that. And for us just to come forward and say, well, we'd like to give, X amount of money to organization Y was inappropriate. So that's why I had to go the way I did on that. The last thing I have is kind of public works related. The city council said, hey, let's spend some money on some speed control measures on Nelson Avenue and some other things there. Are we making any progress on that front, if I may ask the Public Works Director, Madam Mayor?
Mr. Walden.
Yep, through Madam Mayor to Councilmember Graham. I actually think it'll be next week. We're going to be making a 3-way stop on Nelson by the Baltimore station, and putting in crosswalks proper there for speed control, and putting up some new signs. So that will greatly improve the last 7-8 months testifying in that path. So to make it easier for the public to walk across the street there in the summer at least. And we'll continue to work on some type of lighting signs for the wintertime to help identify that as well.
Okay, great. I'm glad to hear that, and I'm glad to see that you can give us a report, and hopefully you'll keep us updated in the future as well. Thank you, Madam Mayor. No more comments.
Okay, Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To Public Works, I hope that someone will inform the gentleman who came numerous times to complain to let him know that he hasn't been forgotten. And next, thank Mr. Stearns for those words of thank you and encouragement. Just because we voted against this, I hope citizens of Wasilla realized that there was too many questions, and it was only the appropriate thing to do is to set this aside until we could get more answers on the proper way to donate money. I kind of different, Mr. Graham. I do believe we're in the business of giving out money, but I want it done the proper way so there's not questions down the road and no one can second guess us. So that's why I voted against it, and I hope you would have patience with us, and hopefully less than 90 days we'll hear something. But thanks everyone for their participation and the passion that you shows, because I am one of those senior citizens. I'm just not living in Wasilla yet. So, thank you.
Councilmember Sullivan Leonard.
What's the age for a senior? Anyway, I'm there too, so a lot of seniors at the table. Anyway, just wanted to thank, I'm sorry the folks still aren't here, but I put a lot of thought into how to problem solve with regard to grant disbursements from the city. And, you know, you always look to see who are the vulnerable in your community, and you do look to see how you can help in various ways, whether it's, you know, your own personal funds, or if you're out there helping to rake yards or paint or whatever you can do to help folks, I think is really beneficial. I actually hadn't realized that City Council had a policy saying they were not in the grant making business until I started kind of doing my homework and digging through past ordinances. And so again, I hope people will be patient with us as we go through this process. And also with the budget process, we'll see probably in another, couple months to see where we're at with our general fund, how much money we may want to consider to give out for those in need. And again, just to kind of echo my comments from before, inflation is really hard on a lot of people. Filling up gas tanks and groceries and what have you is just really, really difficult. So, you know, I think at some point the city does need to come in and help those in need, and I hope that we'll have a process in place that will help those. What else do I want to say? I think that's it for now. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Velock.
Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'm still torn, actually. I think because I do remember that we did run out of time, and like Randy Robinson said, we never called it a grant. The grant was not even ever brought up. It was like CARE money, CARE Act money. So, you know, it's just too bad it just didn't go then. In fact, it was voted down. We had 2 council members that voted it down. And the one said he hadn't been here at the time or two before, and he didn't understand. He said, oh, I would have voted for it had I known. That's why it got brought up again. And then that's when, you know, I see this grant policy, but it did ring a bell when Randy Robinson said it was never called a grant before. So anyway, I'm still kind of torn about the whole thing. I don't know if we're complicating it with this grant policy writing, or that's just where I am at. Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
I have no further comments. Thank you.
Councilmember Rubeo.
Yeah, tough night for sure. That ordinance 2224 is not a grant, but I just like the fact that everybody did their homework on that, and I think we're kind of going down, I don't know. In the sense though, we do need to, I feel like 90 days is a long time for you guys to come together with a whole grant system. So maybe there's a process we can speed up. I mean, Wasilla baseball fields, they need some money too. But no, really, youth and seniors is where the money needs to be spent, for sure.
Okay, I have no comment tonight, and now I will excuse my directors. You're free to go. And we are now at executive session. Madam Clerk, please read the title of the executive session.
Thank you. It's the annual review of the city clerk. Subjects that may tend to prejudice the reputation and character of any person, provided that person may request a public suspension.
Madam Clerk has requested that the review take place in executive session. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, yes.
Is there a motion to enter executive session?
Councilman Brown, so moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Brown and seconded by Councilmember Sullivan Leonard to enter executive session for subjects that tend to prejudice the reputation and character of any person, provided the person may request a public discussion. The purpose of this executive session tonight is to hold the annual review of the city clerk. Those present in the executive session will be the entire city council and the city clerk. Is there discussion on the motion?
Madam Mayor, at the, I guess the will of the body, would we like to also invite the city attorney? She has been attending our other executive sessions.
Yes.
I know, it's your executive session.
I said we invite her,
I agree.
even if they're handcuffed, to bring her in there.
Okay. So, Madam Attorney, you are required to be in executive session also. Okay, is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. The council is entering executive session at 7:56 p.m. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. We're back on the record and the time is 8:21 p.m. Is there a motion, council?
Yes. We move to authorize an annual step increase for the city clerk from 25G to 25H effective July 1st, 2022, and to move her PTO from 16 hours per month to 20 hours per month based on attorney review.
Okay, is there a second?
Second. I didn't get a chance to second that.
You can do it, you can say.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Vlog and seconded by Councilmember Johnson and Sullivan Leonard to, okay. Anyway, to, Nikki, restate the motion.
To authorize an annual step increase for the city clerk from 25G to 25H effective July 1st, 2022, and to up her PTO to 20 hours per month based on attorney review.
And that'll be effective July 1.
Is there discussion on the motion? Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. With no further business at hand, I'm adjourning the meeting unless objection is raised. Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned at 8:23 p.m.
You can give me time to object.